In the evolving landscape of invoicing and payment portals, businesses can often struggle with both integration and efficiency. However, with the right tools, what initially present as challenges can be transformed into opportunities. Welcome to Esker On Air. I'm Scott Leahy. In this episode, we explore how Monto is revolutionizing the way companies manage their accounts receivable processes by, among other things, reducing days sales outstanding and enhancing partnerships through seamless portal integration. So we're excited to have Maya from Monto with us to discuss that, along with podcast regular Dan Reeve, Esker's VP of Sales, to talk about some industry trends and this new partnership with Esker. So Maya, Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Not fun to do one in person.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. So we're going to have the first question to Maya, as you're the special guest here today. What inspired you to create Monto, and how does Monto integrate with AP and payment portals?
So first, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I've started my career as an ERP implementor. I was working on this local ERP and trying to connect the business with all of their customers and get paid. And one of the things that we encountered is so many different AP platforms, AP portals, supplier portals that we try to get paid from. And we were typing those invoices and doing everything manually. Register was very, very hard. And that was encouraged me basically to start my business, Monto. And we are here today building seamless connectivity to various different AP platforms. There are thousands in the market, and we already connect to 300 of those, building smart connections to every portal and help businesses to get paid.
So let's think about those portals. Let's talk about those portals. What are the main challenges that a business can face with these portals, and how specifically does Monto address those issues?
So companies used to send invoice via email to their customers. Nowadays, we see more and more businesses just saying, no, in order for me to pay you, you need to put the invoice inside my AP platforms. So they have to go through long registration processes to set up themselves as a vendor, to upload invoices, make sure those match to the PO, and then even monitor the invoices and capture the remittance information to see if someone pays them or not, if the invoice is accepted or not. So a lot of different things that cost a lot of time for them.
So listeners of the podcast will know that I work primarily with Esker's existing customers. We had our AR user group in Atlanta earlier this year. And in what was supposed to be just a quick aside about a partner that we're going to start working with, and the pain points that those AR customers feel in connecting to those customer portals, what was supposed to be just a quick comment about this new partner turned into a 50-minute conversation because existing customers at Esker are very excited about a possible solution to these issues. So, Dan, question to you here. How does this partnership with Monto benefit our existing Esker customers? And is there anything you can talk about in terms of what the customer might be experiencing before implementation with Esker and Monto, and what they might get out of it after the fact?
For me, I think it's a mechanism for the enterprise that's using Esker to get to the icing on the cake faster, to get value faster. And what I mean by that is, especially post-pandemic, the rise of portals has grown. I remember being with Medtronic years ago, and they said, portals have become the new paper debt. 35% of our effort, it just shifted. It's gone away from paper, and now it's time to set up the portal, to access the portal, to navigate the portal, to do things like, we're here predominantly today to talk about the receivables process, upload the invoice, check the status, maintain and make sure I know what's going on, and check, are we going to get paid on time, and make sure there's no issues, because there are, I need to jump on them. So for me, it's a mechanism to sort of take away some of that manual effort, to help the customer know sooner if there's a problem, Or, where do I need to focus? These invoices are all good. These ones, potentially, we're not going to get paid on time. And that's the icing on the cake. But I think traditionally, to get to the icing, it was tricky. I mean, there's various ways to do it. Other ways you can connect using API, you can use RPA. I think many listening to this podcast, be it folks at Esker, folks in the market, partners, have all known of teams that have tried to connect to the portals and to maintain those connections. And it's been quite a lengthy process. And often, the customer would say, but okay, there's a top 5 or 10 portals. That would be great. But many of them are interested in the top 50s, 100, 150 portals. If we could get all of those connected, fantastic. So there's interest in doing more, I think. And people want to get to that cake. They want to get to the icing on that cake.
So is there any feedback from current customers? Have they shared anything about their experience with Monto's portal integration? And how has that maybe impacted their operations?
Yeah, there's a couple of examples that come to mind, a couple of existing customers. One I've known for about a decade. So one of the customers found Monto for themselves and said, hey, Esker, this is interesting. And we're exploring a joint project to get together where they said, look, we need to get these invoices to portals. Both customers actually said, what we'd love to happen, and we've heard this before, is we don't want to have to be doing the swivel chair thing. If we can have one interface, and when we're in our receivables or collections or receivable suite, we know if there's a problem with connection to a portal. We know if there's a problem with an invoice or a potential problem with an invoice. I'd like to see all that inside one interface, predominantly. I'd like to be able to see that inside Esker, and that's the case with Esker and Monto. So folks have said that really helps us. And they're excited by this both the integration and the ability the extra visibility that comes from. I can see the invoice. I mean, something Maya and I sort of spoken about this week is I can see the invoice is ready to go, but not just are there any issues. There's almost a pre-approval. We know what that buyer wants. We know the idiosyncrasies. There's got to be a PO number. It's got to be put here. They need this reference. This is how you get that invoice perfect, ready for their process. Effectively, how you make life easier for that buyer, their procurement team, their accounts payable team, which in turn increases your chance of getting paid on time. So yeah, lots of interest basically.
Maya, back to you. Can you explain any of the specific benefits Monto brings to the AR process? Maybe particularly in terms of reducing that DSO, days sales outstanding.
For sure. So I'll start maybe explaining a bit about the product. Monto is not just an integration, right? So we build smart connections, and we do that by learning the buyer's specific requirements that they need in order for the invoice to be accepted and paid. So we basically build smart connections between the supplier and buyer as a unique connection. I think a lot of the companies that tried to do it before build smart connections from supplier to the portal, but not from supplier to a specific buyer. Because if you have two different buyers in Ariba, those will be completely different. So I think this just makes more understanding on how we actually solve the problem. And whenever you issue an invoice in the correct format that the customer is requesting, the invoice will probably get paid because you've done everything that you need in order for this invoice to get paid. So we help by reducing DSO between 30 to 50%, depends on the customer. We minimize time to invoicing to almost a zero. We minimize rejections to almost a zero. And those rejected invoices, their DSO will be 3 times more than a regular DSO. So those are part of the benefits that we provide to companies.
Dan, beyond uploading AR invoices to AP portals, how else are companies interacting with these portals? How might these interactions benefit Esker customers seeking automation in maybe source to pay as well?
Yeah, I'll go there in a second. I think we talk about uploading, Maya's correct in saying it's not just about uploading the invoice. Well, the reality is a lot of folks will value being able to have the status that comes back. And often folks, the folks using Coupa, Ariba, Talia, Evalua, or whatever their homegrown portal is, many have homegrown portals. Those portals will also produce remittance information, which basically says, this is the amount I'm paying. Here's a file, or here's instructions. And many of our receivables departments, or the customers' receivables departments, they have to go out and try and get their hands on this information. And if that can be automated to a degree, and they can get their hands on that information, then that allows things like, well, it makes their chasing efforts easier, because they know who to go and chase. Why chase company A if they're going to pay you tomorrow anyway? In addition, we talk about days sales outstanding and improving working capital. Many teams are focusing on cash application as a way to both improve working capital and to make sure you don't frustrate your customer. Again, if the customer's paid you, nothing more infuriating to a customer than you delaying them credit and extra goods and services because your systems aren't up to date. So by laying their hands on the remittance file and information, that allows teams to have better visibility of when they're going to get paid, and even feed that into cash application solutions. Plug for Esker. Esker offers a cash application solution, which can free those folks up to go and do more valuable tasks. And maybe if we extend that a little bit further, if the remittance file shows you're going to get short paid, or there's something that doesn't quite make sense, they're overpaying you, they're short paying you. Well, as soon as teams have that information, as soon as they can research and say, is this claim or deduction fair? So laying hands on the remittance data, or maybe even claims and dispute data that lives up in the portal, could be valuable. Obviously, right now we're just focused on accessing getting the invoice posted, getting status, and maybe bring the remittance back in as well.
Yeah, you were just sharing the entire product roadmap for Monto and Esker, but we're excited to share this.
Well, kind of thinking about the future, Maya, are there future developments, updates that users can expect from Monto to further streamline invoice delivery and even collections management?
Yeah, so today we connect with all of the portals, right? And portals means that there is some kind of like a supplier portal. But in the future, we're looking to connect to ERPs and more light AP platforms that don't really require the supplier to integrate to. And this should create even bigger coverage. And eventually the portals are a good thing, right? Because they provide you the status of the invoice, and you actually know that the customer has accepted this, and you have a assured status for the invoice. So that will be one of the things that we are building in the future.
Zooming out a little bit now, even out from Monto, question for both of you. What are your observations on the current trends in e-invoicing, writ large?
Yeah, so I can start. Just talking about, the e-invoicing regulations kind of like force companies to have their own AP or AR platform and make sure everything is compliant. So it just supports the idea of more and more businesses will have an AP platform, an AP portal, and showing how this problem is growing. So I think businesses, suppliers have to make sure they're future-proof themselves and really have the tools that will enable them to get paid and be compliant. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this topic of Esker, or companies turning to Esker to help access portals, is a natural extension of e-invoicing. What I mean by that is, for example, if we're going to post an invoice up to the French government website or the Italian website, then what we saw is there's a need to ensure that all the fields are filled in, and all the right information is put into that field in the right format. And the same will be the case for in Germany and Poland when their online e-invoice platform, compliance platform is put in place. So just as we have to, as part of that service, make sure all the information is correct, filled in, and the format is ready to go, because our enterprise customers say, for example, I work with a company up in Seattle, and they said, I haven't got time to follow 40 to 50 different e-government platforms around the world and know everything they need and what's changed. We've got to do the day job. So Esker in that scenario is helping to provide that compliance. We provide the guidance there. We know what's needed. We make sure that you're compliant. You can send the invoice and relax. The reality is, Monto is very, very similar in that we described how Monto is providing a pre-validation where Monto knows what the buyers expect, okay? And it's making sure that if you don't have the information in the right format or you don't have the information on your invoice, that's called out. So rather than send an invoice and wait 30 days to find out, hey, they didn't pay us. And a good analogy, in talking to Aaron Leahy, Aaron says, much of the time, companies can't just call those folks and say, hey, you didn't pay us, what's going on? Sometimes you are forced to, the way you engage is through the portal and through the portal alone, which is, tricky. So the sooner you know there's a problem and you can fix the problem before it becomes a problem, well, then you're not getting to the end of the month and discovering, oh, well, I guess we're not getting paid on time for this one. There's a problem. You get to address it early. It's a bit like a spell check. Before you send the email, it tells you, hey, whoa, hang on a minute. You can't send this email.
Yeah.
Dan, your spelling is terrible. We've got to fix this. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for both of you, but I'll start with Dan. You've been with Esker a long time. You've been doing this a long time. What have companies tried previously? Before we start talking about companies like Monto and these new developments, what have companies tried previously to attack these portals?
Well, I think sometimes companies have tried to go down the path of using EDIs, the connectivity between one another, with varied success. I think RPA, tools like RPA have been used, and sometimes an IT group or a citizen developer group within an organization has probably tried RPA. What often we find is that one of their challenges has been developing the skill set so they can do that themselves, and then maintaining. Well, what happens if the portal changes, or sometimes the portals change deliberately because folks running those portals, those ERPs, might have some concerns about how you engage with them. So what we often see is that folks have put time into this, but they rarely have been very successful. And normally you find there's been a real lack of success. They've only managed to get 1 or 2 or 3 portals set up. And it's been a far more time and effort than they ever imagined. That's what we see in the market. And I will say, another thing I see is that this isn't just, we're here to predominantly talk about invoice delivery. But I think this issue impacts payables teams. They have to go up and access portals. It impacts customer service and logistics teams. They have to go up and access portals. So my point being, this is becoming the new norm. It's the new paper. And where did it go? Well, it went up into these portals.
Yeah. I'll add to that a lot of the companies are doing it manually, right? And it's not to be ashamed of. But I think if for every invoice that you upload to a portal, and we are working with businesses with thousands of invoices on a monthly basis, for each one of them, you have human in the loop. Just create a mess, create a real problem. And what we're trying to build here is a zero-touch process. So most of your invoices will go from Esker directly through Monto to all of the different AP platforms. And those will be almost with a zero touch. No human in the loop, creates more automation, and everybody wins.
Scott, I'll add a comment. So I was talking to a member of staff here at Esker who worked in the Madison community, and previously he had worked in finance. And he said, Dan, when it came to portals, I was spending 1/3 of my time accessing portals. And he said it was not easy, it's tricky to access them, tricky to navigate them. I really didn't particularly enjoy that type of work. And I said, well, what was the type of work you wanted to be doing? He's like, exactly. I wanted to be out there building a relationship with my customers, my suppliers, my partners, others inside the organization. I couldn't get to that work because I was kind of forced into this portal work. And he says, I really didn't enjoy it, but it was a necessity. So when we talk about here at Esker, we talk about improving the working life of staff, improving the how the customer and supplier feel engaging with your business. I think this is back to icing on the cake. This is a mechanism to make life, more enjoyable and bearable for your staff in finance, but also to try and bring benefits through that technology for your supplier and customer, reducing friction and manual effort.
Yeah, those manually tedious tasks that nobody wants to do.
Right.
We definitely hear from customers that their team is just frustrated to work on those portals, and they keep pushing this task to the end of the week or maybe to the end of the month.
So all things being equal, a Monto integration might be a part of a project that has other components to it, but just thinking about the Monto portion of this work, what could a customer expect in terms of implementation time?
Yeah, so we worked really hard to actually make Monto available within 30 days for all of the companies. So you can expect a very short implementation. Whenever you have a new customer or a new portal, we can actually connect to it within 7 days. So it should be very exciting.
Well, thank you, Dan, as always, and Maya, as a first-timer. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate the insights, and we are really excited to begin working with you.
It was fun.
For more information on the Monto partnership, check out the links in the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about Esker, you can find us at esker.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.